My name is Bethann Vergean, and I work at the Yukon Center on Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. I also am the ACT Early Ambassador for the CDC for Connecticut. So early childhood is my passion, but I enjoy working and talking and training about children of all ages. So I'm excited to be here tonight. So I think that a lot of this, so tonight's conversation is about resilience. So I hope that you guys can unmute yourself and kind of talk about your experiences, what we're going through. I think when I think about this training, as I was putting it together, or this presentation today, I thought about, where we were a year ago and where we are now. And I feel that we're creeping a little bit out of this norm that we've known in the last year. It's crazy. It's almost a year that all of this started. So, and I know that, all of us as parents have gone through so much in the last year. And I think that this topic, resilience, talks about how we're going to go forward. So definitely I'll be, kind of talking about a few things, and then I'm getting a little interactive. So resilience is, so the technical definition of resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. So it's not just, well, we could say, oh, I broke up with my boyfriend and life is just falling apart, but that's a small part of what we go through difficulties. But when I think about resilience, I think about this past year, COVID, and I think about what our children have gone through, what we've gone through as adults, and just this ever-changing life of social distancing and missing that connection that we have with people. I don't know about anybody else on this call, but I am done with Zoom. I feel like it's my life, and I don't want to look at myself anymore on a camera. Some days I go, oh dear God, what was I thinking with my hair? Yeah, you're like, what was I thinking today? So I personally miss those connections. I'm a very outgoing person, and I love interacting with people. So I will be happy that when we're able to meet in person and connect that way. So I think that is part of my something that I need to think about as my toughness that I've gone through the last year, and also my mental health, missing family, watching my home and family just kind of missing our family, etc. So the other part of it is of resilience is the ability of a substance or an object to spring back in shape. So, we pull back and then we come back even stronger. So we can think about, someone that is going through an illness, some people who have had COVID, are they able to bounce back? Think about people that have illnesses. Are they able to bounce back and come back to be that same person? And then as parents, seeing our own children change in the last year, can they come back to be those same kids and have those connections with other children? So that's what I define resilience as, is to go through those difficult times, and then how do we bounce back and come back stronger? So this year, I think about stress is a huge part of it. And so we've had job loss, we've had physical distancing, anyone that you've known or that could have had COVID, schools were closed. So that is our negative outcomes that we saw a lot in the last year. But also too, I, heard about the people not going to the doctors anymore because they're afraid to go to the doctor. So acquiring more health concerns that they did before. So that's another part of that negative outcomes of this. But then the positive outcomes is some of us may have had stable housing. We did have families that, under the CDC Emergency Act, that families could not be evicted from their homes. So that in some way was a positive. A lot of people learned more about being home and with their family. I did see in the first 4 to 5 months, I worked from home for the first for like 4 months. And I would constantly see on social media, people are like, oh, I painted a room or I started a new project. I'm like, yeah, I didn't get to do any of that because I was working and homeschooling at the same time, or virtual learning. So, but responsive relationships, I did feel that I did see a lot of families become closer and closer. Some of us felt a little too close. This was ready to be done. So, we go for long walks and just try to get out and have some sort of, time for ourselves and mental health breaks as ourselves. Another thing is, a lot of people lost their jobs, which was, I think, the hardest part of this pandemic, besides anybody having COVID-19, was the loss of income and the loss of jobs. And so the stress of being able to support our families. But out of that, the great country that we live in, we were able to get more unemployment benefits. So that was in some ways a positive outcome. I know not everybody may have experienced that. And we hope more relief is coming. If anyone has questions or comments as we go through, please stop and ask questions, because I love to answer questions. So how do we reduce the sources of the stress that we had, job loss and closed schools and physical distancing, and those loved ones with COVID? So how do we balance all of that now? So we went through this whole entire year of having these extreme losses in our lives to now going forward. So what's the number one thing that we want to reduce our stress, but also too, we yearn for those positive, responsive relationships or families, for us to all get back together. I think in the beginning, everyone was like, oh yeah, this is great. I can FaceTime my family and I can Zoom and, all these sources. But I think after a while, there's just so much you can talk about. What did you do today? Well, it's the same thing I did yesterday. So, now that the weather's getting warmer and more people are getting vaccinated, we're going to be able to get out and have more relationships. And that's part of resilience. So we're starting to bounce back to where we want to be. And then also hoping that more people are getting jobs back, and then also, which would include stable housing. So this is that, the first slide I showed you was the balance of all of this. And now we're kind of at an even keel. Before we were, the balance was up so high with more of a negative outcomes. And now we're in more of a positive. And I hope everyone that's on this call presentation tonight is feeling more of those positive outcomes. I do think that our children are slowly going to feel some sort of normalcy. I do know that families that have children with disabilities or had trouble with virtual learning. And so I think as an educator, we all kind of fear a little bit of they lost a full year of learning. And so where are they going to be when we, hopefully back to some normalcy in September? I do know a lot of schools are back open now, but we think about, okay, we have 3.5 more months of school this year, and then we have the summer, and then will things go back to normal in September? And what's that going to look like? So in the loss of all of that education for our kids. And I think more importantly, we are going to think about their mental health as well. So children thrive on being around other kids. So we hope that that would be a big normalcy that brings them back in their life. So I think we can all say today, and if you want to unmute yourself or throw it in the chat box, if you had to rate 0 to 10, where you think you are on bouncing back, what would you say where you are on a 0 to 10? I will tell you, I'm about a 7. What do you guys all have to say? Oh, a 6, a 7. Yeah, I'm about a 7 too. Oh, a 6. Yeah. Yeah, 7. I don't think anyone's going to come back and say a 9 or a 10. It's also slow. And you know what? Like, I'm really done wearing a mask too. I just, you feel like, you're like, oh, I just can't breathe in this anymore. So, but we're going to get some normalcy. So, in rating our resilience, so we think about when you encounter a difficulty. So when something hard happens in your life, do you think that you lose sight of your goal because the difficulty takes over your life? I want to just see if anyone has any. Have you gone through that? And is that a hard task for you? So you can just throw it in the chat box if you want. I will say that I had a difficulty trying to juggle everything. And I lost sight of, I think, to be honest, I lost sight of just taking a breath and being happy that my family was okay when I was just too overwhelmed with trying to work and trying to homeschool. And if I cooked another meal, I was going to lose my mind. So I think that was my personal experiences. I lost sight of the importance of just being healthy and together, and I was too stressed out.
Yes, I think that's true what you're saying, because one of the things I noticed for me was self-care. I wasn't practicing it. I wasn't eating healthy. I wasn't sleeping well. And, it caught up with me, and it made me realize I need to start taking care of myself. Yes,
Right?
child's
So
education
true.
is important, but I need to also make time for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I was, the cook, the laundry, like trying to run the whole entire house and like, never leaving the house. It just really affects you. I mean, I could go for a walk, but I still walked back in the house and everything was still there. So I had a lot of guilt too of the amount of screen time that my child was having. So that was a big, hard thing on me. And I knew that like in the second bullet here, I worry about issues that I have no control over, and I had to really like let some of that go and do my best. I still had to again work, and so that was very, very difficult.
And yes, Debbie wrote something in the chat, and that's also a very stressful situation.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't feel you have the support you need while you're going through something like that, something medical, or your health is involved.
Right. And Deborah, I hope you're feeling better from your surgery. I will be honest, I had major surgery back in September, and going through this pandemic and everything else, it is very stressful. So I hope that you're getting on your way to recovery. But
I am better, thank you.
Good. And you know what, Deborah, the other thing is, this is what resilience is about. You're down and you're gonna get better. And if you had issues walking and any type of physical activity, I'm hoping that this will keep your resilience and it'll keep you going.
Right. It's just hard because
Yep, go ahead.
I'm the mom, so it's hard.
Yeah, there's no recovery time for mom.
Oh.
I do love what Monica wrote. I don't lose sight, but it's hard to focus and it takes longer to go back to my goal. That's such an excellent point. We all have goals in our lives, and I think that our mind shifts so much in the last year, but hopefully that we all can think of where we want to be and just push a little bit harder. The third one I put was, when a task doesn't go to plan, it affects my self-belief. So I think me personally, and anybody else can chime in, either unmute yourself or in the chat box. That loss of believing in ourselves, that if we, we're all such remote, we're set at a remote of how we do things. And I think that when things didn't go the way that we wanted it to, and we had a plan, it affects how we goes back to that kind of self-care too, is how we think about the belief in that we can do things to make an impact or make a change or make our family happy or make our family better or make ourselves better. So I'm very hard on myself when I can't complete something the way that I want to. And I can be really hard on myself. But I will tell you, in the last year, I've been blessed to work with CPAC, and I love coming on and doing these presentations. I'm a connector and I love talking with people. So I could say out of the last year is the connections that I've met, new families, has made me proud and have really good belief in myself. And then the last one is I feel positive about the future. I hope everybody on the call tonight does feel positive that we are going to get out. Yes. That we all are going to move forward and things are going to get better.
So over this time, I met a new friend on my street that's now one of my bestest friends.
Yeah, see, so there's Cooper's. He had a difficult time and something positive came out of it. So we do, I hope.
Best friend on the street.
So sorry. So I do see positive coming our way, and I think that had so much loss that we're only going up. So this was all great conversation. Thank you. So I want to talk about, I could just talk to you guys about what resilience is, but to me, having conversations and you guys telling me about yourselves and what you're going through and what makes you a more resilient person, I think is going to be the most beneficial out of this presentation. So I have about 7 questions here. You can pick one and you can unmute yourself or you can put your answer in the chat box. But I think these are important. Why are you you? So what makes you? And then this is my favorite one, is what gets you up in the morning? So what gets you moving? I will tell you that I have 2 things. My 2 things are my family, and the other is this work. I'm so passionate to work with families and try to, if any way, to make families better on what is going on in their lives. So that is what gets me up in the morning. What keeps me awake at night? Well, I have a child that doesn't sleep very well, so that keeps me awake at night. And then when I'm most alive is when I'm doing like this, when I'm connecting with people. And number 5 is, what does being successful mean to me? We all want, a bank full of money, but I think that happiness is what makes me personally, I think that's what makes me successful. If I'm not happy, I'm not going to have a great life. And then what can you do to make a difference in one person's life today? I think that's a good question for anybody here. And then this last one is, if you met an older version of yourself, what advice would you give that older person? So I would love for you guys to pick one and then just either unmute yourself or put it in the chat box, and then I can read what's in here. Monica says, I'm a single mom and also work as a family support provider. Oh, that's awesome. I needed to develop extra loads of resilience. I think, Monica, that's amazing comment, because you're helping families, but you're also trying to keep your family together, and being a single mom is not easy at all. So I see that you have tons of resilience because you're taking your experiences and you're also helping other families. So that's amazing, Monica. Adriana says, what keeps me up at night is my son's needs and making sure that I'm doing the most I can for him. I think as a mother, that keeps us all up at night too, is making sure that they have every need is met. So that one's good. Deborah says, I'm a determined person and a goal setter. So you're full of resilience, Deborah, even with your spinal surgery. Number 7 is don't let the outside little things make you stress. That is so true, because I think not just the COVID that we went through some racial injustice last year, and we still go through it. We went through this political environment that kind of put a negative impact on us as American people, I think. And I do think that I'm right with you, Vanessa. I felt the same way during those situations. More of the political environment is, I can choose my president and I can make my decisions, but I'm not going to let all that toxic talk around me stress me out. So those to me were those little things that wasn't worth me waking up every morning and just being full of anxiety. So that is a great one. I mean, so, I talked a lot about resilience in COVID, but we also went through, again, 2 other like emotionally draining situations. We went through the racial injustice that happens in our country and how heartbreaking for families that have lost loved ones. And then we also went through this political presidential election and then everything that came out of it. And I think everyone was just so done. And we, there were so many memes about goodbye 2020, and then, we entered 2021 and it was like, wait a minute, this is like a nightmare. What happened? So again, like it was just such a year that I don't think we could ever forget. And I remember telling my son, like, he's 7. And so I said, when you get older and you get married and you have kids, you can be like, you're a part of history. You went through this, pandemic. And I don't think myself or maybe any of you guys ever thought we'd go through a pandemic. We heard about all these things like polio and then the Spanish flu. We're like, oh yeah, those things won't happen. So I think that March of 2020, we thought we were going to go home for a couple weeks. It was going to get better. And then we were all going to come back to our normal lives. So it took a turn that I don't think any one of us expected. Does anybody else want to share any of these questions?
Paula has a comment in the chat.
Oh yes, if the person is down, I always try to show the positive side of the situation and use an example. If you're riding a bike and you fall, you can cry, but you have to shake the dust and keep going. Yeah. So if we just keep all that negative energy, it makes us in a person that I know who wants to be that. So I mean, I'm a strong believer. I drive my husband crazy, but I am that person too. Like, okay, this happened, how can we move on and do better? We just have to, it's a lesson learned, and we move on. So you're right, we can't focus on the negative. We have to focus on the positive. Anybody else want to unmute or kind of talk about what gets you up in the morning, what your passion is?
My kids make me get up in the morning and work. Actually,
what's so funny? Yes,
my dogs normally wake me up, but then I really have to get up to keep the kids going.
Yeah.
and get ready for work and everything, but it's all worth it.
It is. And I will tell you, so my son, like ever since he was born, like he's always been this early riser. And so like I have this human alarm clock now. I don't know if I'll ever sleep past like 5 or 6 again in my life. I hope to. But yeah, you're right about what can they, I hear, mommy, can I get up now? What time is it? 5:01. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, but is it true? But once you're up and you may have a cup of coffee, you're like, oh, okay, yes, hugs, kisses. Let's get our day going. They say early risers get the most done, right? Anybody else? I think it's such a good topic to talk about. When we think about resilience, is that gauge of where we want to be and how can we get there. So we move it along, and at the end, we're better. I think makes us better people, despite the things that we go through. As those times are really, really hard, it makes us just so much stronger. I've been through a lot of personal fights in my life medically, and I truly believe it's made me the person that I am today, and that I will be stronger every day for it. So I will say resilience is my middle name sometimes. Anybody else? Questions or thoughts about what you're personally going through?
I'm curious about number 4, the question
Okay.
you had. So it is, when are you most alive?
I like that one.
So my interpretation of it is, when do I feel the happiness and the energy the most?
Right.
Correct? Is that the right
Yes.
interpretation?
Yes.
Okay. And I think for me, in that case, is when I'm doing service, when
Yeah.
I'm doing something for others, when I'm lending an empathetic ear to a friend, to a coworker, to a family member. And I think it relates to what Paola put on the chat about spreading the positive thoughts and the energy. And I think it's contagious. And I feel that we feed off that. So I would like to think of myself as a positive ambassador, someone who's spreading the cheer, because we need that. Not everybody feels the same when they get up in the morning. We all have a different path and different journey in our lives, and we do need encouragement.
Right.
So I really like that question.
Oh, I'm glad. And I think everybody's got something in their lives that affects them in a negative way. I don't, some people will say, well, if I had this or if I had that, and it's more of a monetary thing, but does it make you happy? Not necessarily. So you're right when you say about what makes most alive. And I like how you talked about the supports that too, of giving families, because families help families, parents help parents. And so if we've been through something that has affected our child, as a lot of us have children that have been affected either developmentally or have some sort of developmental diagnosis, what is better to feel another parent that's been through it and that can guide us through to help us understand that it will get better. And I think too, anytime that a parent has a child that has been given what all parents fear is that label. And so knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and that there are tons of supports out there. And so we just may need some guidance and get through those rocky roads to get to where we need to be. And that's what CPAC is all about too, is, all the great work that you guys do to help parents, because not everybody knows where to go.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
think Debbie made a comment.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
struggling to find passion while home during COVID. I try to walk and do crafts, looking forward to visiting when one's friends once have vaccinated. Yeah, you can just do so many crafts. Yeah, I mean, that's what, Debbie, that's what this resilience is all about is, we are trying to find those one little things that are going to keep us getting through the day. I mean, I think a lot of people have like watched enough TV, enough Netflix, and crafts are a great thing. And so trying to keep ourselves busy, but also keeping ourselves mentally busy too. So the more I think we sit and think about things, I think the more anxiety that we have. And so trying to find that outlet. And you're right, once people get vaccinated, we're going to be able to do more gatherings and have those social connections. I believe that people are built to have connections. And if you don't have those connections, it's hard to find some happiness, because we all know, we can all think of one person in our life that makes us happy when we see them. So what is better than having a connection once we see those people? I will be honest, I'm excited to see our family. So, and then Monica wrote, being successful means to find peace and balance in our lives, along with serving others as vulnerable as me. Oh, Monica, my heart is, that's awesome. Yeah. So being successful also means being that person for somebody else and helping. I agree. To me, that is just as important. Anybody else? I think the last one, number 7, if you met an older version of yourself, what advice would they give you? That one I actually struggle with, because I don't know what advice I would give myself. I think that one of the good points that someone put in the chat box is, kind of like, don't sweat the small stuff. For sure.
Yes, I think we sometimes are so overemphasized on the little things that we forget
Right.
the big picture.
Right.
I think I would say that to myself too.
Yeah, like, I remember when, I don't know if anyone was affected, but we had that huge storm. Was it last summer? It was in August, I think. And like, losing Wi-Fi, and we lost electricity for 4 days, I think it was. And, all the food was spoiled in our refrigerator. And so, we could either just stress about it, but we made the best out of it. So again, like, trying not to, like, those are, material things. And so not to get so upset about them. Did stink about the refrigerator, though, I will admit that.
And number 1, Bethann, we haven't covered, why are you? So
yeah, so it's like, what makes you you?
Okay.
Anybody what do you think makes you you? I mean, we all know that, we have genetics and we have genes, and we may have characteristics that our parents have or our siblings, but I think everyone has their own uniqueness. So what is that uniqueness? Because I think that is also a part of building resilience, because when we have those tough days, we know that there's this uniqueness about us. Some people can say, well, when I walk in a room, her smile just always makes me feel better, or her laugh, or her stories, life experience.
Like that.
Oh yeah, I never thought of meeting an older version of me, but a younger. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. I don't know if I'm afraid what I would be as an older person. But life experience is, I think, again, life experiences makes us better people, makes us want to do better and be better. And I think out of COVID, I think mental health is an important thing that we want to be better. And we want to think that things will get better. Does that make sense? Deborah, you look so comfy there.
I apologize. I'm tired.
I'm just playing with you. So I think we've like kind of gone through a lot of these. You know, this is kind of my answer to what gets me up in the morning is my husband and my son and our animals. My faith, friends, definitely friends, and passion and drive. I love what I do. I love working with families. To make any child's life better makes me feel better, and the impact that we do. Also, anyone that has mentored me along the way, because it has helped me be the person that I want to be. So that's kind of and there's my son Cooper and his dog, but you met Cooper a minute ago. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts? This was really good conversations. I mean, I can pull you like 30 slides and lecture about what resilience is, but it really is what good conversations. And I think more than ever now is a time for us to have really good conversations and not just listen to me talk.
And I feel also, Bethann, that we need to teach resilience to our children at a very young age.
Yes.
I feel that there's not enough emphasis on helping our kids overcome setbacks, not to give up, to continue to try, not to feel defeated, even though, you know, I can quote something that my son told me once. He struggled riding a bike because he has coordination issues as a young kid, and he didn't give up, and he did it. And I told him that's called resilience. You didn't give up, and he felt so accomplished and so proud of himself. So we also as parents need to celebrate those little accomplishments. Every single accomplishment that our kids do, it's a celebration motive for me as a mom.
Yeah, and also too, like, it's the feeling that they have because they accomplished something. We're excited for them, and it builds their self-confidence. And when you build self-confidence, it really helps you build more resilience in your life. And so you're right. My son as well, like during the pandemic, we taught him, he actually learned how to ride a bike. And the first week was painful. He just kept getting frustrated and wanted to give up, and I'll never be able to do this. And now for Christmas, we got him a bigger bike, and he's riding all over the place. And I always go back and remind him, remember the time when you said you couldn't do it, and look at you now. So that's always a good conversation when children feel that they can't do something.
Exactly. Especially with kids who have disabilities or learning disabilities, you know, we constantly need to be filling up the cup for them.
Right.
They face so many struggles, you know. So I always think, why would it be like a day in my son's shoes? And I try to think from that perspective and understand him. And that's why I celebrate all of his things, little, big ones, everything. And he's thriving and he's doing great. And I speak with a lot of emotion when I talk about him, because he really has overcome a lot of his challenges. But he took that self-determination that he had, that positive and courageous attitude towards his work at school, towards his friends, towards encouraging his own peers. So yeah, so that's all about resilience.
Yeah, and he has a really good role model, his mom.
Thanks, Bethann. I try.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, our children are the most important things in our lives, and when we see them struggling, it hurts us probably more than it hurts them. And so we just have to keep building up their confidence, and you know, little by little, it's gonna get bigger and better. And I do think like from experience being in classrooms and you know, having a lot of kids that have disabilities in the classroom, and I was more concerned about the kids than they were. And so, and just how it's all about inclusion and how all children blended in together. And so, you know, I was more nervous than they were, you know, their first day. And so, but you know, kids are resilient. They don't look at all of that chatter and all of that, like, you know, noise. They just embrace each other. And so I personally think as adults, we can learn a lot from kids because their
Definitely.
love is never ending. Thank you for sharing.
This is wonderful. I love this conversation. I really do.
Good, good. I'm glad. Does anyone else have any comments or thoughts? I hope that this was helpful, and that, you know, tomorrow morning when you get up or you're laying in bed tonight, you're thinking about what am I going to do tomorrow? And, you know, I always think in the morning too, what's the one thing I want to accomplish today? And even if it's the smallest thing, that is going to give me a little more self-confidence too. The smallest thing. Definitely isn't cooking dinner anymore. I've lost all ambition.
We all have.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
I think we all.
What's tonight? It's for dinner. I'm like, I don't have no idea.
Breakfast for
You're
dinner.
like going grocery shopping. I'm like, I just don't even know what to buy.
I have a comment.
Sure.
What can I do, or how can I support and provide resilience to my clients? I work with first-time moms,
Mhm.
different ages, mostly 20s and below. And how do I provide that resilience? I had this whole year being positive and trying to be positive, and I learned how much they stress me in the middle of all these uncertainties. But I wish I can. I mean, I'm trying my best, but what else? How else can I encourage these young moms?
I think that you've had a lot more life experiences than they have. They are young, and so life hasn't necessarily started. I think just being that positive role model and sharing the positive experiences that you've been through. Being a new mom alone is so hard. Our whole life has adjusted. We're responsible for this little human being. And so that's scary in itself. But I think constant positive reinforcement is going to help new moms be able to, you know, we're going to go through some time where we're not sleeping, but it's going to get better. By the time they're like 3 months, you know, and by the time this is 6 months, we're going to be able to do this, this, and this. So I think also telling a sleepless parent, it's going to get better. They're like, yeah, they probably would have some choice words for us, but it's just about being constant positive vibes, but also to acknowledging their feelings that right now you do feel this way, but this shall pass. Everything shall pass. Because you know what? When we think about our kids, we blink our eyes and like they're 6 or they're 7. And so, you know, I say all the time, I'll be honest, like the sleeping thing that I talked about. And so, you know, they're only young once. And so we don't want to lose those experiences. So we may get frustrated, but we want to cherish these moments for sure. You're welcome. It is truly hard to tell someone something's going to get better. You know, if you've been through something, you know, it's going to get better, don't worry. And they're like, I don't think so. So it's all about experiences. And once they get through those experiences, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember 2 months ago when I told you that you were crazy and I wasn't going to get through this, and I got through it. It's the positivity.
Thank you. Yeah,
And we've all been there.
exactly.
Yeah. And I will tell you that I remember when I was pregnant, everyone's like, your life is over. It's never going to be, all these people would tell us these crazy stories. And my husband and I'd be like, you guys are acting like we're going to jail. You know what I mean? It's not the end of our lives. It's the beginning of a most amazing life. So sometimes parents or mothers enjoying their own, valuing their own experiences is also resilience as well, even if they're sleep deprived. Anybody else? Any comments on Facebook, Vanessa?
No, I checked.
Oh, okay.
This was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that I walk out of this conversation feeling inspired.
Good.
So I'm just gonna say that word because I really feel that this is I'm gonna apply all of those self-reflective questions. I might even try to answer all of them.
I'll send you the PowerPoint.
Yes. But I think it's an exercise that we don't do enough, and we need to know ourselves, to know our strengths, our weaknesses, and where can we find opportunities to be more resilient.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. And especially, going through the last year, I think everyone's burnt out, and how could you think positively when you're just so burnt out and done? But I think knowing that those connections that we're going to have socially for ourselves, for our children, is going to improve us. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll get there. And those hugs will be the best hugs we've ever had. And I know I actually had a friend today who her mom got vaccinated and she did. And so her mom hit that 2-week mark where, it was fine. And she went this morning before work so she could just hug her. She hadn't hugged her in a year. So it was the best part of her day. So I think we all are going to look forward to those interactions.
Nice.
Debbie,
And Adriana, your advice about building up your child is a good reminder for me. My daughter is 21 and I forget that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter how old they are. They still need their mom.
always.
Yep.
Yeah. And always giving them the right words and the right confidence boosters. I mean,
it's
as
been hard.
adults, we're hard on ourselves, so it never ends.
Right.
Yeah, well, I appreciate everyone for coming on tonight. This was the best presentation, best conversations. And I really thank everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bethann.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I can't wait to see you guys next month.
Absolutely. I'll send out the
Okay.
information.
Thank you
Okay,
very
have a
much.
great night, you guys.
You too.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I look
Bye.
forward to hearing everyone who they get to hug first.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
All right,
Good night.
take care.
Bye-bye.